Hey, hi, welcome to our channel Code with TD. Today we are going to see a system design question. Okay, let's go into the question. This is basically I want to design a system where booking.com is there and I want to integrate with the hotel's property management system to fetch the room availability, pricing, and syncing the reservations in real time. So here basically like I want to integrate the booking.com with the hotel's property management system. Ideally I want to like ask for room availability and the room rates, and I want to sync the reservations in real time. Let's go the assumptions first. Okay, let's first assume this hotel's property management system, which is called PMS. Let's assume this PMS is up and running. So ideally in the reservation system, payments will be there. So I think let's not worry about the payments. We can ask this to the interviewer, and if he says okay not to worry about the payment service, like we can assume this payment service is up and running. Okay, now let us go the functional requirements. So ideally a user will book the room and booking.com should map the data. So whatever the data, the guest data, room data, so like reservation data, so we need to map it, map the data. Booking.com should communicate with PMS. Booking.com it should handle the response from the PMS. Also this booking.com it should handle the updates on so like let's just assume the PMS will be sending back the like booking status, like booked, like in progress, booked, so all those updates we will be receiving. So it will handle the updates from the PMS, updates on status from the PMS. What else? And booking.com should give response to the user. So let's just assume these will be the functional requirements. Okay, so now let's go with the non-functional requirements. So as part of non-functional requirements, when we see, ideally first we need to have a trade-off between the availability versus consistency. So ideally to fetch the, so user will be trying to see the room availability and pricing, so those details should be highly available. But when the user is doing the reservations, those things it should be it should be like highly consistent. So we can write like, so the availability, pricing, so these things it should be highly available, and as part of reservations it should be highly consistent. So let's go with this. And what else should we worry about? So it should be, the latency should be low. Ideally whenever like a user tries to see see these things and trying to make a reservations, so the latency should be low. Okay, here it's a user. So what else should we think of? So since we are going to communicate with the third party system, we need to handle security, and yeah, I think this is enough as part of non-functional requirements. um, okay, let us go with whatever the data model. Like, first let's think of whatever the entities we are going to have, and all those things. So ideally we want to have the rates. So we will be having the rate entity, and this rates, okay, let's just assume room, here it will be, we will have hotel id, room type, and room rate. So these things we will be having, and so like all the inventories, so we will be having hotel, so all the hotel id, hotel name, and all those things. Let's just okay, what else we will be having? um, so user details will be there, and booking details will be there. Bookings, all those bookings will be there. It will have the booking id, uh, booking id, start date, end date, and user id. So it will be mapped to the user id and username. So all those things will be there. Okay, so in the bookings, these details will be there. In the user, so user ID will be there, user name, and all his other details would be there. Okay, let us think of uh, which we are going to use, which protocol we are going to use. We need to think of that while communicating between the like from booking.com to PMS communication, how it is going to be, we need to think of that. The ideally a user needs to see the rates and the price, and he need to book the reservation. So all these things we could use a REST API call, since we need to handle this in real time. That was a question, right? So since we need to go the real time, uh, so we can go with the synchronous communication. So as part of synchronous communication, like we can go with the REST API call, and a user can give the request on room availability, rate, and the reservations. So those things, REST API, for what details we will be using it to get availability, and get rates, and book reservations. So all these things we could use the REST API. So also we will be having different statuses, right? Okay, what booking status will be there? So ideally, these kind of status we can assume. So initiator, okay, so let me highlight, give me a minute. So ideally we could have these are the flows. Initiated, to in progress, uh, booked, or else it could go to cancelled. So these could be the statuses. So all these status updates, it should come from the PMS. Status, for these status updates, So these updates will be sent from the PMS. So for those updates we could use webhooks, which will be a right fit. So we can use webhooks to get the status updates from PMS. So for those things we could use webhooks. Webhooks is nothing but it will be the although all the response, like it will come from the server side to the clients. Only like instead of this we could use for polling and long polling, but those will not be a right fit in our case, so we can go with this webhooks. Okay, so these are the data models, now we need to, okay, what else, what so these are the statuses, right? So what API design will be there, we need to think of that. So API design, in the API design case, so ideally we will be having a for getting the reservations, we can have like this. I mean, get availability details. So it will get all the availability details, and we want to get the rates. So API v1 rates, and what else? Uh, uh, these two will be a get call, and we need to ideally post the bookings, book room. So these API calls we will be doing from the booking.com to PMS. So these will be the API design. So whenever we are sending the data to the PMS, since it is a third-party system, we should not expose our entities or all attributes from our end. So we need to map it to a particular format. So whenever we are getting the availability and rates, like we will be sending some details like so we can have a data mapping layer. So in our case we can have it as a PMS integration service. So we can have like this. So what this data mapping layer will do, so whenever a user is giving a request, we will be having all the user details, but we don't want to send the user details to the PMS. So we can mask it, don't send these to PMS, since we don't want to expose the user details. So what else will be there? So ideally we will be sending a booking ID and room type ID and hotel ID, and what else, start date, end date. So we will be sending these details to the PMS to get the response on the availability and the rates, right? So for that, this booking ID, we could map this to mapped booking ID. We can have something like this, mapped booking ID, and for this room type ID, we can have like mapped room type ID, and same for hotel ID, we can have mapped hotel ID. So these things we could handle and send it. So these things will be handling by the data mapping layer. So like whatever the endpoints are exposed by the PMS, like we will map it to the response, and then we will be sending. So in our side, okay, we will be getting the response, and storing, we need to store all the details before sending to the user. So which database choice will be a right fit over here? We need to think of relational versus NoSQL, relational versus non-relational. In our case, our system will be a read heavy system, since like when we see the booking.coms, such hotel websites, like a lot of user will be coming and seeing, but only like a few number of user will be booking it. So since this is a read heavy system, using relational database will be a right fit. In relational database, like multiple relational database will be there. So ideally, like we could use like MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL, lot of things are there. Like since like we will be having simple queries, PostgreSQL will be useful in case of complex queries. So we could go with normal simple MySQL database over here. And also like since like we need to handle high consistency, this MySQL database, like it will handle high consistency by default. So because of these reasons, we could go with the MySQL database. So in the interview, like we need to tell all these things. Okay, now let's go with the okay. Before that, I also want to talk about the okay. Let me go with the high level design diagram first, then let's talk about all other things. Okay, so what things do I'll be having? Let me okay. So I'll have a different services. So let me assume I'll have a user service, and I'll have a reservation service, and what else can I have? We can have a payment service, notification service, and all those things. Okay, so I'll be having a user service, reservation service, payment service, rate service, inventory service, and notification service. So I'll have a data mapping layer. So in our case, we can we can call it as a PMS integration service. Let's just assume it looks like this. PMS integration service. So this PMS integration service will handle data mapping and data the request. Okay, data mapping such as the request translation and response normalization. Okay, these things will be handled by our payment integration service. Okay, let me add a text box. Okay, it's fine. Okay, what else? Also, I'll be having the hotel PMS. So actually, like multiple PMS will be there for different hotels. So in our case, when we see, so let's just assume this is one of the hotel PMS. PMS. So here I'll also have a rate service. We don't want to worry about it since this is a third party service, but still let me mention somehow mention a little bit. So what inventory service, let's just assume these things will be there. I can fully copy this. Okay, it looks like this. Let's just assume. So, all the things that we are sending, it will go to the integration service first, and then it will go over here. Okay. Also, let's just assume we will have a API service. So this API service, let's just assume it API gateway. So let's just assume the whenever it is sending a response, it will come to API gateway first, and then it will go to the integration service. So this API gateway will be handling rate limiting, authentication, and authorization. So all these things this API gateway will be handling. Okay. So okay. Now let me just put the flow. uh, Also, whenever we will be sending, like we will be sending via the status via webhooks. So let me put over here. So we will put it in a message queue over webhooks, and this can be sent to a notification service. So this flow could be like this. So from here it could go to notification service. So this will be sent via webhooks. Okay, let us put all the other flow. Okay, so ideally we were talking, we will be having a database where we will put all these details. So a database is there. We assumed this would be a MySQL database, and okay, this looks good. Okay, let me complete the diagram. Okay, now I have completed my diagram. So now let us go with the flow. So now a user comes and requests for a booking. So it will initially come to the load balancer, and when there are multiple such users and trying to access our, so this is basically, this part is our booking.com service, right? So this will come to the load balancer, and it will go to the API gateway, and it will handle all the authentication in the user end. So once the authentication is done, then it will go to our respective service. So if a user comes initially, it will go to the user service, and the registration will be done over here. And if he wants to see the inventory items, it will go to the inventory service, and get availability API will be API call will be done. And so if he wants to see the rate also, it will go to the next layer. So ideally this will be done, and then okay, let's just assume he asks for the availability. So it goes to the inventory service, and it will go to the PMS integration service. So here all the data mapping will be done over here. And we can we need to think of data encryption. We don't want to send the data, and we don't want to expose it. So we need to think of multiple encryptions. So what if there is a man in the middle attack, man in the middle attack. So basically we can use https communication for all the REST API calls and everything, so that this man in the middle attacks will be avoided. Also, like for what if we don't want to expose our details, and so like we could have some encryption mechanism. So whenever we are sending a request over there, like we could have some AES encryption, and then encrypt all our request details and then send over there. So okay, once this is done, once all the data mapping is done, it will go to the API gateway. So we need to think why it needs to go to the API gateway. So also, like whenever we are sending a request also, we need to handle the rate limiting part. So like if we are sending, like when the booking.com service is sending a lot of requests to the downstream, which is a PMS, and this PMS, if it could not handle all such load, like in that case we need to handle the rate limiting and throttling in our end, so that this will not happen. Okay, once all this is done, this API gateway will add an access token and then send it to the PMS. So we need to do some, okay, so now this hotel PMS will be sending back a response to the API gateway. Okay, let's just assume this is sending a response. It will come to the API gateway first. So here the authentication will be done. Ideally here we can use OAuth 2.0 authentication, because like it will be a right fit for this OAuth 2.0. It is good in cases with third party integration. There is multiple different kinds of authentication mechanisms, like mutual TLS also, but this TLS will be like we need to handle the certificates in both ends, in the PMS side and in our booking.com side. So in that case it will not be a right fit, so we can go with the OAuth 2.0. So it will check the access token that it is sending, and if it is a right token, we could send it to the PMS integration service. So here again, the whatever the response they are sending, we can decrypt it, and all the response normalization can be done over here, and then we can send to the inventory service. And then this inventory service, first it puts in our cache, so that when another request comes, when another user comes with the same request, we can use it from the cache instead of going like handling. And once this is done, we can give it to the user. So all the data we will be putting in a relational database, and so all the past bookings and all the past availability details, so we don't want to handle those things and all. So only future details we could handle in our database, and all the old details we can move it in a cold storage. So this old data handling service will handle that part. And we can have a monitoring and analytics service, and then all the details, so like how much frequently a user is booking, and what is the peak seasons, and all those things we could send to monitoring and analytics service, and it can go to the insights engine. So also we have multiple statuses, like initiated, payment, like processed, and booked, confirmed or cancelled. So all these things, this hotel PMS can send the status via webhooks, and we could it will invoke the notification service, and we will update the user using that. So this is the main flow over here. Okay, so here we need to think of multiple failure scenarios. So what if like uh, any of the services down? So ideally we need to we need to use multiple instances of these services, so that if one service is down, the another service will come up and starts running. uh, Also, this PMS integration service also, if it is only one service, there will be a single point of failure over here, and so that we could have multiple such instances. Also, the API gateway also, we need multiple instances of API gateway. Since all of these are stateless services, we could have multiple instances for all these things. Okay. Even cache also, we can have multiple cache. So in part of DB, we could have multiple replicas over here, so that all the write will be handled by the master node, and all other read requests can be handled by the slave node. And like if there are lot of data, we need to shard it basically. So here the sharding key could be, we could ideally use the hotel ID as a sharding key. So if assume like if there are 5,000 hotels, and if we use hotel ID as a sharding key, like we could divide using that. Okay, so what else we need to think of? Okay, what if like now we need to think of the race conditions. uh, So whenever two user is trying to book at the same time, like only one inventory item is left, and two users are trying to book at the same time. So this scenario could, we need to give more importance, because in the hotel booking service this could happen in a wide scenario. So in such cases we need to think of some locking mechanisms. So ideally we can go with the optimistic locking and pessimistic locking could be there. Optimistic locking we can use whenever the concurrency will be low, but in this case the concurrency is will be little high. So in that case we can go with the pessimistic locking. That pessimistic locking is nothing but we will be expecting that the concurrency will be happening, concurrency will be there, and then before that we will be doing like in advance we will be locking the database. So here what we could do is, like we could have soft locks and have a expiration time. So ideally maybe within some 1 minute, if the user books and does the payment, we can handle, or else after 1 minute the lock would be released. So if like by using this expiration time, the deadlock scenarios will be avoided. So ideally in the pessimistic locking, there is a two-phase commit protocol also, but the thing is, to implement this two-phase commit protocol, it is a little overhead. So in our use case we can go with the soft locks. That will be a that might be a right fit over here. Okay, so we need to now we need to think of some failover scenarios. Like so like previously we talked about, whenever whenever our booking.com is sending a lot of requests, and this hotel PMS is not able to handle that much amount of huge requests. So in that case we were talking about rate limiting. So like we can limit only these many requests, we can send it to the hotel PMS. We could have a predefined contract, and based on that we could send. And like if oh, okay, so if what if the response delay is there? So we will be sending a request, and this hotel PMS might take some time to process it and give a response to back to us. So how we can handle such delays? So basically we can one possible way will be we could add a expiration time in our API call and do that. And also what we can have is we can show response to the user as processing, and once this gives a response, we can invoke the notification service and send it back to the user. So these things we could do. And if this hotel PMS is down, so we need to do a graceful degradation. We could show response to the user as a downstream is down, please wait for some time, like that maybe. Or else we could put it in a queue and handle it later. These things we could do. Or else we could add a circuit breaker mechanisms in our end, so that we could check, we could use the open state, closed state, and half open state. So whenever we are sending a request and it is not at all responding, we could move it to open state, and after some time we could move to half open state, and we could check it, and if it is working properly, after some time it could move to the closed state. So these things we can do. Also yeah, I think this is it. So there might be some follow-ups, like why we are doing OAuth 2.0, why not others. We need to study on, we need to read about multiple authentication mechanisms such as JWT and hash-based message authentication system. These things and all we need to read about. Also we need to think of the duplicate bookings. This might happen in a lot of scenarios. So what if a user multiple if the user clicks for the same book option for 2 times, he should not be double booked. That scenario should be taken care of. So ideally this duplicate bookings we can handle with the idempotent keys. So we can basically use UUID. So this book ideally we will be having a different booking ID for each request. So if basically this UUID could be generated based on the combination of user ID and maybe the start time, so that whenever there is a duplicate request, this UUID will be same, so that it will be handled the same by the PMS. It will not do another booking basically. I think that's it. So we need to prepare for these follow-ups and all. Why OAuth 2.0, why not others, how this authentication is done. We need to read about this, how this authentication is done in OAuth 2.0. Basically OAuth, we will be asking the authentication server access token, and this authentication server will respond with the access token whenever we give client ID and the secret key. And basically we can request with that particular access token. Also it will have expiration time, so that we can not use it indefinitely, so it will be kind of more secure. We need to read about this. And these things we talked about. And what if this webhook's data is lost? Basically if this webhook data is lost, we could whenever it is lost, we could add it in a retry queue, so that we could process it later. Yeah, I think this is fine for now. Okay, subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.